Okay. Seems like everyone in the Mets sphere is talking about the possibility of trading Francisco Lindor. The only real source of this is a supposed quote from a rival executive that says the Mets informed them that everyone is available except for Ben, Ewing, McLean, Scott, and Soto, which shouldn't even need to be mentioned. The Mets haven't said any of this publicly, and one thing they don't really do is leak what they're doing. For example, did anyone in the world have a clue they were talking to Bo Bichette at all when they instantly pivoted to him after losing out on Kyle Tucker? So, they don't give away what they're doing. And, just by omitting Lindor from that supposed list, told us some secret rival executive guy, that doesn't make him open for a trade. Neither does him answering with a no comment when he was asked about waiving his no trade clause. I mean, first of all, his value is at the lowest point possible right now. He's already banged up and struggling to get back in the groove after missing 50 games. So, as I see it, the Mets wouldn't receive anything even close to reciprocal value without paying a huge portion of his contract off in a deal. Secondly, I have to believe the team is trying to compete next year, and we don't need to be subtracting pieces that are going to help and will be needed. There's no viable shortstop option on the team or anywhere close to the majors. I mean, yeah, you could easily say slide Bichette over, but I mean, he's not as good at shortstop as Lindor is typically. Not even close. And I mean, lastly, people have been making way too big a deal about even non-performance things like, the captain controversy, not being BFFs with Soto thing, and unfortunately also politics that were talked about by stupid people on the internet during the last off season and, continues until now even. So what I'm trying to say is understand where the Mets truly are amidst all this talking. I think first we have to take a step back to last season's trade deadline. I mean, you can go back even further to when, Stearns took over the team and made some moves into the 2024 season, all that season. But, we're trying, we think we have a good team, went pretty far in 2024, started off pretty good last year, and then just, we were hanging in there at, on July 30th last year, we were 62-47, first place by half a game. Coming up to the trade deadline, I forget the exact date of it, but I thought all the moves that we made were good moves to help the team where we had some needs. We brought in all these rentals, the outfielder Cedric Mullins, and relievers Ryan Helsley, Tyler Rogers, and Gregory Soto, all for prospects. I thought we gave up too much for Rogers with Tidwell, Blade Tidwell, and Drew Gilbert going to the Giants for him. But, I mean, he did perform the best of the bunch for us down the stretch there. Last season with the team struggling. Yeah, Rogers, he was the best out of those guys for us. Soto coming over from Baltimore, he was okay for what was expected of him. Got him a nice free agent contract from the Pirates, of all people, coming into this year. But Mullins, he put up a terrible 565 OPS in 143 plate appearances. With the Orioles before that, he had a 738 OPS. I mean, a bit better than league average, but 565 is not even playable. And then Helsley, I mean, he was so bad, it's unbelievable how bad he was, with a 7.20 ERA and 20 innings, blew 4 saves. And even with all of this not working and the team just spiraling downward to the end of the season, the Mets only missed the playoffs on the last day of the season. I mean, it's not great, but I think it would have been a better matchup than we saw with Cincinnati playing the Dodgers, and they got swept in the wild card round. I mean, I have to think we would have put up a better fight than they did. But anyway, this all led to major changes after the season. The entire coaching staff was replaced, except for Mendoza, who he was going on his last year under contract with the Mets. So he's playing, trying to win, expecting the team to win, and hopefully get his. I'm assuming he was hoping to get his contract extended if it did work out. But we'll also look at Pete Alonso. He signed with Baltimore, obviously. I mean, where, they were the only team to offer him a 5-year deal he was seeking. I do want to go into this one deeper now. I needed some time to digest this all in my head ever since it happened. Even I want to see some results from the season to get a better sense of how it might work out. Plus, just it was a pretty big shock just to lose such a big part of the team for the past couple years. And I mean, I hated to see Pete go. I hated to see him go. I mean, we got to see it. What I've come to terms with is just we have to see it on a longer timeline past just this season, and maybe even the next year or the next two. Also, we could travel back to 2024, where Pete Alonso had the worst season of his career by a lot. And that was kind of lost in all the other excitement around the team. We were playing like the best team in baseball for a long period of time that year. So we were able to kind of like hide. I wouldn't say hide, maybe not hide Alonso, but the fact that he wasn't putting up the numbers that he had been, or, of what we think we're going to get from him. So after that year, I mean, we know how it ended, and we signed Soto, convinced Alonso to come back on basically a 1-year contract, since he wasn't getting the long-term offers he wanted, coming off his worst season where he also had the qualifying offer attached to him. So, it was, kind of low times for him. I mean, I guess I'm sure he was excited, thinking the team could build on what they had in 2024. But as far as his personal situation, he was trying to get a long-term contract, preferably with the Mets, I would assume, and we weren't trying to do that. They got him to come back on that, what was it, like a 3-year contract with opt-outs. I mean, it was kind of just known that it was going to be a 1-year deal, and then he'll test the market again. So he comes back and has his best season since his rookie year, 2019, and maybe 2022 was just as good as last year. Of course, it helped. He had the opportunity to knock in Lindor and Soto for half his RBIs. Knocking them in gave him 62 of his 126 RBIs. Then comes out of last season without the qualifying offer attached to him, and the Orioles are there offering 5 years and good money. Mets would have needed to at least match the length of that contract. It just seems like they didn't want to go that long and on anyone really. I think Pete, in addition to the money, he wanted to be established somewhere for the next few years. That was important to him, and I'd like to believe that the Mets would have signed him for 1 year if it was a possibility. It's just with the timing of the events, I don't. It wasn't a possibility, even if they would have gave him like 40 something, like they gave Bo Bichette. He also probably signed with Baltimore with a pen in his hand, probably giving a big FU to Stearns, because he earned that contract. He earned the contract he got. He definitely did. No doubt about that. Just in his performance over the past couple years, and all it took was a team wanting a bat like that at first base, kind of overlooking some of the defensive flaws that I think were overemphasized in the media, and then that took to Stearns talking about the run prevention thing. I don't think it was the entire theme of the off season, but he did mention it around the same time. And then also with Pete, I don't think the point of letting him walk is about this season. As I mentioned, it's going to take a couple years for it all to play out. Yeah, it's tough now when you see him putting up power numbers with the Orioles, but I don't think anyone felt Pete would just completely drop off. Especially hitting in Camden Yards. So the way they went with the guys they signed, it was all high dollars on short-term deals. All the guys they signed. Bichette, as I mentioned, Polanco with 2 years, $40 million, taking on the Roberts $20 million contract in the trade. Devin Williams signed for 3 years, and then Luke Weaver on 2 years. So, like I said, how it all play out, obviously not so good for the Mets this season, but most of the results of all these changes will be revealed over the next few years. Honestly, I have no idea how it's going to go. Seems like a gamble either way, but the Mets clearly have a 3-year period where they will and should attempt to reset their luxury tax status. That's the only conclusion that makes sense, at least to me, considering them carrying Soto and Lindor's contracts and putting enormous resources in their development system. That's it. Everything seems to be that's what they're building for. Take the Soto and Lindor and build around them with guys coming up after that. And you can also use that as an argument to trade Lindor and spread that money around a little bit, but we still need someone to play shortstop. and they're banking on a development system, which unfortunately took a step back this year, but I, they feel strongly about it. And I mean, some of it is also evident in the guys that came up this year, and McLean last year, Scott, all the guys they mentioned that aren't tradable have already made it onto the team. So that was my thoughts on the Alonso situation. Just trying to take some of the emotion out of it, I guess. I mean, it happens in baseball. Players move on, and situations change. But I mean, it was a big shock to Mets Nation. Um, they didn't want to put the 5 years into Alonso. So, and then with Edwin Diaz, I don't think it was that strange of a thing. I mean, I think it was just as simple as the Dodgers got involved. He wanted to try to win a championship. The dollar amounts he signed for and what was offered by the Mets were reportedly near the same, and both at 3 years. Apparently he never came back to the Mets for a counter offer. It just seemed like once the Dodgers came in, I think that was what he wanted. A better chance to win. I mean, that's his right, and he was right. I don't even feel that as him taking a shot at the Mets. I mean, Dodgers are back-to-back champions. But, I definitely love Diaz as our closer. I don't think the signing of Devin Williams hurt his ego or something like that. I think the plan was to have Williams set up for Diaz, but then, Diaz went with the Dodgers, and we went and signed Luke Weaver, pushing Williams into a closer role. I mean, this worked out pretty good for the Mets, despite even with the Diaz injury. Obviously, our bullpen has been one of the few strengths of the team on most nights. I mean, it's not just those two guys, but they're the back end of it. And, I think Diaz just simply went to the Dodgers to try and win a championship, and he might, even if he doesn't play. So, Brandon Nimmo. I really like Brandon Nimmo. I went to see him play in Binghamton in like 2014 or so. It was him and Steven Matz there. Also, Dilson Herrera, who I had high hopes for. Just never panned out. I watched a doubleheader there and just really liked how Nimmo played in the outfield and at the plate, obviously. I mean, I knew who he was. Highly criticized first-round pick of Sandy Alderson. His high school in Wyoming not having enough students for a baseball team or something like that, all that other stuff. I mean, I was cheering for him coming up and seeing him develop an all-star level player. It was a cool story. So, I really like Nimmo for what he was as a player. And, it was a big deal for the Mets as they haven't developed many really good hitters in the past decade. The three they did, they all left last offseason. Alonso, Nimmo, and McNeil, after not really winning anything in 7 or so seasons together. I mean, hopefully that's changing now with Benj and Ewing coming up and looking like they're ready. Seems to be, but we'll see. Anyway, just having signed Nimmo to that 8-year contract, at the time I thought it was a bit much. Felt more like a loyalty reward for just all the years he came up in the system, and he was developing a really good player. I mean, in a way, it was a cool gesture, but everyone could see some decline in his fielding, where his arm was just always a weakness. It's hard to imagine since, if I was alone on a Wyoming ranch or just any open area out there, I mean, what else is there to do but throw rocks? Develop that skill. I don't know, but his arm was bad for an outfielder. His arm was bad. So the trade of Nimmo for Semien also got them under that 3-year timeline. So there's that theme again. I mean, and then the Freddie Peralta trade, that was something a team expecting to win now does, especially in taking some advantage of Milwaukee's payroll situation, just their way of doing business. I mean, we gave some prospect capital for him there, and Braden Sproat's now part of their rotation. And then with Peralta struggling, and then Tobias Myers came in with Peralta as like a multi-year piece. He's just been terrible since May. Since May started, really. And, this trade is not looking too good for, obviously not helping the Mets for this year, but just in hindsight, I mean, hopefully the Mets could strike a deal. They got a seller's market this trade deadline and just try to get some kind of value to replace Peralta, since, he's clearly looking for a multi-year contract going into free agency, and he's not going to accept a qualifying offer at the end of the year. If we do offer to him, and even then, if he declines it, all we get is like a 4th round draft pick or something like that. We could get something much better at the deadline here, with these teams kind of competing with offers, trying to get, probably, definitely a top of the rotation starter, like a top half of the rotation starter. And if he figures out what his problem is, he could be probably like a number 2, as some would, a so-called number 2. I don't know, but so enough with this. I had a little bit of a speech prepared because I wanted to make sure I touched on all these points, but we're going to go back to the trade list I put out on the 4th of July weekend, and I've added some to it. Still in the being definitely, I'm calling it definitely now, definitely being traded: Freddie Peralta, AJ Minter, Brooks Raley. Guys are all free agents. And I also added Tyrone Taylor. At the time, I was not sure if he had value, really. Since he came back up, I think it was July 1st. Very short sample size, only 22 at-bats, but he does have a 1.106 OPS. So he's displaying a little bit of his power. Maybe he's healthy again. I don't know. But, I mean, he's seen more as a defensive outfielder. But, if he could provide some pop for facing left-handed pitchers in that role, I think teams are going to want him. What we'll get in return, who knows, but he's going to get traded. Still in the possible list, I'm going to put up Lewis Robert. He hasn't come back and played yet, but a team may be willing to give us something for that. And he also has a team option for next year, so a team that trades for him could also have that. If he comes back and kills it for whatever team that is, they have the option to sign him for next year if they want to. Luke Weaver, he is signed for next year with us, but just knowing the volatility of relievers, and he's solid, been solid throughout his career, but he just seems to be on a real hot streak now, and his value is peaked. A team could possibly use him as their closer. Mets will definitely have to listen to any offers made for Weaver. A highly unlikely section I'm adding to this. Beatty, Mauricio Vantos, just little to no value, still under team control. I think in the offseason, at least one of these guys will be gone. Least likely Beatty, I would say, just due to his defensive value. And I think it seems like the team is still hoping on him to catch up to his progression that he was on, and just kind of like forgot how to hit. I don't know if moving around, playing different positions has an effect on that, but I mean, he's been doing decent lately. But either way, I think we have the rest of the season to see with these guys and what they have. I don't know how long Vientos is out though. Francisco Alvarez, highly unlikely. I mean, a hitting catcher in these times is pretty rare, and he has the power, if he could just realize he needs to just stay within himself a little bit more, and a little bit more under control with his swing. He's under team control for 3 more years. He's not going anywhere unless we just get totally blown away. And even so, I think that would be more of a off-season deal. Clay Holmes, I mean, I've heard some talks he's interested in extension with the team. If that doesn't work, we can extend the qualifying offer to him. I think he would almost have to accept it. I mean, a lot of it will play off what the extension terms are that don't get worked out. I mean, just knowing a ballpark figure of what he can get, but I think it would be in our best interest to at least give him the qualifying offer. It would be a raise for him, and it will also keep some teams away from signing him away from us. And then just the impossible, not going to happen. All the guys mentioned in that news story, and Benj, Ewing, McLean, Soto, and Christian Scott, those guys aren't going anywhere. That's our future core. And also Francisco Lindor, for the reasons I mentioned, just being at his lowest value, not having a shortstop replacement anywhere close to the majors, like in our system. Obviously, you can get a cheaper shortstop to just hold down a position, but I don't think the free agent class coming up is really that great from what I hear. And Francisco Lindor just had 30-30 season last year and is like getting MVP votes for the past couple years. At some point, he'll decline. I think this year is just a result of missing the spring training. He had the hamate bone injury and then the calf injury that kept him out 50 games. He's just getting back. His legs under him. Probably bothering him a little bit mentally, and that's what we're seeing on the field. I just don't think there's any way we can or even would trade him right now. It just doesn't make any sense. So, hey, if you guys have any thoughts, just throw down some comments. Let's take it to the Phillies in this series. Try to win the series, starting off the second half. Go down with some pride. All right, let's go Mets.